So in this video, we're going to show you the procedure on how to remove a stuck camcorder tape on a Sony camcorder without damaging the tape tube badly and without damaging the mechanism. Because many people will just rip it apart to get the damage, or get the tape out and ruin everything. So this is how you take it apart and take the tape out without causing excessive damage. And we'll take a look and see if this one is actually salvageable. I got this little camera in from a client that I did some archiving work for, and it's got a tape stuck in it and it won't turn on. So she wanted me to look at the camera and see if the camera was repairable or why it's not working. It could be just a bad battery. Let's just try it with my power adapter. Let's see if we get any different results. So indeed, the camera itself is totally dead. No power. I'm pretty sure my adapter is putting out power. It's got a light on it, so it should be putting out some juice. Let's just measure it. And my adapter is in fact working. So we know that that's not the problem. The camera itself does have a problem. Now this one was brought to me basically just to get the tape out of, so that the tape can be transferred over to a DVD. So let's start by removing the tape. To take the tape out of these cameras, if they won't power up, you basically have to take the camera apart. So we'll pop the cassette housing open. That's done by removing these two screws. I'll try to power it with an external power supply too, set for 6 volts, just to see whether the external supply will do anything. This is just in case, the off chance that the battery contacts weren't making a good connection, but as we can see, there's no power whatsoever. So the camera is dead, and it's likely not going to be repaired. The owner of it is not looking to get the camera repaired. The owner of this camera is basically just interested in getting the tape that's in it removed so that it can be transferred. I've done the rest of their tapes for them, but we'll take a look at it and see where the problem lies on this one. The fact that it's completely dead indicates there's a problem in the power supply. These ones have a DC to DC converter on them that was loaded with capacitors that start to leak. And typically what happens on these things is once they've gone bad, once the caps go bad, they'll typically work for a few minutes. Like when you power them up again after they've been stored for 10 or 15 years, and then you power the camera up for the first time in a long time, they will typically power up initially, run for a few minutes, and then all the electrolytic blows out of the caps that are leaking and attacks the board and shorts it out and pops some fuses or eats away at the traces, and then it becomes a lost cause at that point. That's typically what happens on all these camcorders when they fail. That's why so many of them are they're not worth repairing. In fact, none of them are really worth repairing when they get to that point. When you've got the capacitor leakage on them, they're pretty much a lost cause. So we're just removing all the arrow mark screws. And this side cover should come off now. Pretty sure I got all the screws out. We'll take out that clock backup battery. Just making sure that it wasn't a clock backup battery that was locking up the system. That has been known to happen. So to force eject the tape, we can just unplug the loading motor and we can put some voltage across here. I'm just going to drop my power supply down to about 3 volts. And we can put our voltage across the terminal here on the motor and eject it. Yes, the tape does get a little bit wrinkled when you do it that way, but there's really not much else you can do because the motors won't come on unless you get the power supply running. You notice which polarity, right? I put negative on this side and positive on the right to eject, and the opposite way to take the mechanism back down. There we go. Now the mechanism's in place, and I use like 3 volts to do that. If we want to examine this anymore, I'm going to remove the rest of the chassis from here just so I can just run a couple tests and see where the actual problem is. There's another screw up top here that needs to come out. We'll unplug the viewfinder. There's 3 cords that unplug. That'll take this cover off. So electrolytic capacitors, these go bad. The one I'm thinking that where the problem is going to be is on the power supply board here. Let's just check the power supply board. We'll remove it. And we'll just check the 3 fuses. There's 3 fuses back here. We'll check and see if there's any fuses that are popped. Could be a blown fuse, but typically they blow for a reason. But we'll just check to see if the fuses are okay. That one's good. That one's good. As is that one. So the 3 fuses are okay. What I'm doing here is I'm just connecting it to a power supply and seeing if there's any current draw whatsoever to indicate that the power supply is actually trying to start, which there is none.
Nothing.
So
nothing when power is connected. I check for a few voltages coming off of the power supply. I don't expect I'm going to see any because I think the problem is this DC to DC converter has failed. If my clips would cooperate and stay connected, I might be able to test something. Okay, that's the unregulated voltage. Just going to plug the power switch back in so that it gets its signal to turn on. And that is this one here.
So the likely candidate on this is the DC to DC converter board. I changed a lot of those when we were fixing cameras, when people were actually spending the money to fix these. We changed a lot of DC to DC converters because they fail. And, you know, for many reasons. But I've got this, you'll see, I got the standby voltage going out, and I've got the 0.2 volts there. That was it. I just went over the probe there. And, but it's got, that's the voltage from the switch to power the power supply up, but I've got no output, so the problem is the DC to DC converter, unfortunately.
So I know you guys are probably upset. You're going to give me a whole bunch of thumbs down. I expect that because I'm not going to fix this little piece of shit camera. There, I said it. But this camera was not brought in to me to repair. This camera was brought to me to get the tape out, so that the tape can be transferred. That's all I'm authorized to do in this. I checked the fuses to see whether it was just something minor, but it's not just a fuse that's popped on this. This has got no power at all. It's most likely the DC to DC converter board. That's usually what goes bad on these, is the DC to DC converter board. That part you can't get. You know, it hasn't been available for years. So because my only authorization on this was to actually just remove the tape, so that I can transfer the tape over to DVD. That is all that I'm doing on this, is removing the tape. I just wanted to make a quick little video to show you how to take these things apart and how to force the tape out using a little power supply. So you can take the tape out without ripping the machine apart and damaging it. That's what a lot of people do, is they'll get in there and they start prying the mechanism, and then the tape gets really badly damaged or torn, or worse. So it's not that difficult to take them apart. Just use a low voltage power supply. I used to use a couple batteries. I had just a couple AA batteries in a little battery pack to power the motor. So that's it. I'm just going to throw this thing back together so that I can deliver it back with the tape and the DVD of the tape when I take it back. And I just put it back the way it came, and send it back. And incidentally, just for your information, when I was still working in the repair business, that's what we ended up doing on a lot of cameras, even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I guess 20 years ago. Most of these 8mm cameras were all starting to pack it in, and I would say probably 9 out of 10 of them, when they came in, they weren't coming in to be repaired. They were coming in to get a tape taken out of them, and then the owner was buying a new camera at the time, because of course that was when digital video was now the big thing. So we were selling lots of digital 8 cameras. Digital 8 was a good choice of the day because it could play back. The digital 8 of the day could play back the analog. I know they took that feature away, but the initial ones could play back the analog recordings. So there was a lot of interest in the digital 8 cameras, and not so much interest in repairing the old broken ones. So I spent a lot of time taking tapes out and charging people, $50, $60 to take out a tape. Where's that screw go? There's a longer one that goes in there, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that's it for this one. Let's just say nothing real exciting. Just how to remove a tape when it's jammed in an 8mm camcorder. Thanks for watching, and I got to put these screws in first. And we'll catch you in the next one real soon. Bye for now.